Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make an antifungal garden spray for everything from vegetables to roses to any type of plant you have in your garden. You could even use this on trees if you have a big enough sprayer, but it's a very simple recipe to put together. Also, after I get through showing you how to make the antifungal spray, I'm going to show you 20 different diseases that's very common in the garden, and I'll include pictures that I've collected over the years so you can see what might be happening in your vegetable garden or around your ornamentals. So I want to go into the ingredients of this spray and explain why each works and what's it for. First is Listerine. It's a natural antifungal product. It will help with your plants, whether you're talking about roses, cucumbers, squash, tomatoes, whatever it is. So the first ingredient is Listerine. Now you don't have to go with the brand Listerine. You can go with this generic, and I always have a bottle or two in the greenhouse, and depending on price I would go with either one, but they're both very effective at getting rid of those funguses and preventing them. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get the question is, how often should you do this? I'm going to say every 3 to 4 weeks during the entire growing season, from early spring till the end of your growing season before first frost. So every 3 to 4 weeks. This is going to prevent so many problems in your garden and so many diseases from getting started. Again, I'll show you all those pictures. I have 20 separate pictures of the diseases that this will cure and prevent. And so that's one of those things that I'm thinking it prevents a lot more than just 20, but 20 of the most common in the vegetable garden and around my ornamentals. Now the second product is just common baking soda, not baking powder, but actual baking soda. It's going to raise the pH level on the leaf surface, making it harder to any funguses to survive in that area. So just remember, one of the key ingredients is baking soda, not baking powder. A lot of people get those two confused, but you want to make sure it says baking soda. Now in America we have what's called 7th generation soap, and it's a mainly plant-based soap. It's 95% plant-based, and it has very few chemicals in it that would be harmful to your vegetables or ornamentals. Now you can use something even better, which is pure Castile soap, which is completely organic and it's very safe. You want to use these soaps to help mix the ingredients. It helps it mix together, and it also adds a little bit of stickiness to the spray, so it helps adhere to the leaves as you're spraying it, so it doesn't just run off like a plain water. Now the next ingredient is just common vegetable oil, and you want to probably use canola or sunflower as going to be your best bet, but this is going to act as a suffocant for any insects that might be on your plants, small insects that you may not even see, and sometimes those insects can spread these funguses when they move around. So remember, you want to have this is something that will help get rid of a lot of the pests, but it also helps the spray stick to the leaves a lot better, and it doesn't damage them in any way. Now lastly, we just want rainwater to mix all this together. You don't want to put this on its concentrated form because it could cause an issue for some plants. Again, whenever you do this, you want to make sure you do a test spray. But the water we're going to collect is non-chlorinated rainwater. It has been filtered through a very small filter, so there's no particles in it. And it was from a very clean barrel. It didn't have any algae or anything growing in it. So I cleaned out the barrel, and that way we have the purest rainwater. Now, if you can't get access to rainwater, you can use tap water, but you'll need to let it sit in like a 5-gallon bucket outside and let it off gas any of the chlorine that might be in it that could potentially do harm to your plants. Now this recipe is for a quart size, and you'll just need to quadruple the ingredient levels. There's 4 quarts to a gallon, but I'm going to mix it first in this quart size jar, and then I'm going to add it to my sprayer, my small solo sprayer, which I highly recommend because they last so long and they work great. I can spray undersides of leaves, and it's just one of those things. I have 5 or 6 of these around the greenhouse, so I'll put a link in the description to these and my extra large battery powered sprayer that if you really wanted to spray a large garden, you're going to need to upsize this recipe. So per gallon, you're going to need to 4x it from the quart size, and then 4x it from that, from something like this, to a 4-gallon sprayer. So let's get started on mixing our quart size container. All right, so one thing I want to say about the baking soda, and this is dependent on how bad your funguses and diseases are. If you're not doing this at the beginning of the season, if you waited till the middle of the growing season and you have a lot of diseases in your garden, you're going to want to upsize the amount of baking soda, and you can leave everything else at its original. But one thing you want to do is do 1 tablespoon beginning of the season, and then if your problems have persisted and they've exploded with all kind of diseases, double it. And if it's beyond control and you're seeing a lot of problems, you can triple it. So we're going to triple it just for this recipe to show you that it's perfectly safe on your plants. Again, test spray always everything that you make and wait 24 hours. So that is the first thing we're adding is our baking soda. We're making a triple strength baking soda on this one. But like I said, if you're at the beginning of the season, only use 1 tablespoon. But for more advanced funguses and diseases that have came into your garden, double it or triple the amount of baking soda. Now next is the Listerine or the generic Listerine. Just make sure you're not getting the blue Listerine or one that has all the weird colors to it, because that's not as natural as this one. This is in its most natural state, is the brown Listerine. So we're going to use 2 tablespoons of Listerine in our quart size. Now remember, if you're upsizing to a gallon, you're going to quadruple that, and if you're upsizing to something like this back sprayer, you're going to quadruple the gallon size even more. So you're going to have quite a few more. I'll try to remember to put on the screen the mixture rates at 1 gallon and 4 gallons. So I'll put them on the screen right here. Now the next thing, we're adding our canola oil or vegetable oil, 1 tablespoon. And again, this will help with aphids and some of the other mites that might be on your plants that might be spreading those fungal diseases. You're going to have to remember to, each time you use this in these small sprayers or this sprayer, you're going to need to shake it vigorously to make sure it's well mixed. And that will be helped by the Castile soap. It'll add a little bit of mixing ability because you've added that soap in there. So remember to always do that, is to make sure it's well mixed. Now next is our Castile soap, and you can use 7th generation. You just want to use an organic soap that's safe for your plants. So we're going to use, instead of a tablespoon, we're only going with 1 teaspoon on this. So just going to put that in there, and remember to shake before each use, not just the first time, but each time you go to use it. Now whatever container you're using, you just want to let it sit for about 5 minutes and allow the baking soda to completely dissolve, and make sure it is completely dissolved. You want to gently shake this. You don't want to vigorously shake it because you're going to have too much foaming, but just gently shake it and let the ingredients mix together. So like I said, just flipping the bottle back and forth like this and just gently shaking it so you don't have too much foam there being created. And you want to, like I said, between 5 and 10 minutes, allow it to sit, become a little bit lukewarm. You don't want to put this in direct sunlight and get it hot, because you could cause leaf burn or scorching of your leaves with really hot liquid. So just put it in a shady spot and wait about 10 minutes before you use it. Okay, we're going to prep to go out to the garden and spray some of our vegetables, and we're going to just carefully pour this into our solo sprayer. And like I said, you can quadruple this mixture for a gallon size, or you could quadruple that 16 times to make something like a 4-gallon sprayer like this. And I will be spraying the entire garden today with my 4-gallon sprayer. Again, don't forget to stick around. I'm going to show you 20 different diseases with some close-up photos of each one of these diseases I've encountered over the years. So one of those things that can ruin a vegetable garden or ruin your ornamental garden or even trees is these fungal diseases, very common in landscapes today. Now for video purposes, I'm doing this at a time I normally would not. I recommend doing this early morning before the sun comes up above the horizon, or in the late evening right before the sun goes down. But you just want to spray the tops of the leaves like that. You want to spray the undersides, and you want to do this, I would say, once a month. But if your problem is really out of control, you might want to upsize that to 2 times a month, every 14 days. Also, you want to make sure that you don't allow a heavy rain to come through and forget to redo this, because once the rain comes through, you'll need to reapply the product to prevent any of those fungal diseases. Fungal diseases are very common after rainstorms because it really causes extra growth on those type of funguses. So a few extra points about doing this. You want to make sure that you use the Listerine that's brown. Don't use the blue, green, whatever those weird colors that they've added a lot of chemicals to. Second, you want to do a test spray. Only spray one area of a plant or one leaf. Wait 24 hours and make sure there's no sensitivity to the product. Some plants may be more sensitive, and so that's just one of those possibilities. You want to do a test spray. Another thing is, you don't want to do this too often. You don't want to do this every single week unless you have a severe problem with funguses in the garden, because plants, the oils can build up over time and clog the pores of the plant. So you just want to make sure that you just do it maybe once every 2 weeks maximum, and then go to once a month if you have no problems with funguses in the garden. Now about storing, you want to store this in a cool, dark place. You don't want it in a hot greenhouse like I have. I usually put it in the other area of my garage where it can stay a little bit cooler. You can use this up to 60 days after you created it, but again, after that, I would create a new batch. So let's head back in the greenhouse and I'll show you photographs and describe each one of those 20 possible funguses that might be in your garden even now. So I'm often accused in the comment section of droning on way too long, and it's not intentional. It's just that I like to give as much detail as possible, because later on, if you have a question, I may get so many comments and questions I can't answer them all. So the reason I do put probably too much information in a video is I'm trying not to leave anything out. So I'm going to go through these 20 as fast as I can and just show you photographs of each disease and try to give a brief description of it. So let's start first with the most common problem we find in our garden. So guys, I'm making this full screen so you can see it if you're on a smaller size screen. The first one, and one of the most common in my garden, is powdery mildew. It's usually going to be white, and it almost has like a powdery coating on the leaves or your stems or the fruit itself, tomatoes, cucumbers, whatever it might be. And it's most common in cucumbers, squash, beans, and tomatoes. Second is downy mildew. It has yellow spots on the tops of the leaves. There can be some gray mold on the undersides, and this most commonly affects cucumbers, lettuce, spinach, and even basil. Now the next thing is early blight, and I could put the technical name on the screen. I'll try to remember to do that, but this is going to be brown concentric ring spots on the lower tomato and potato leaves, and it causes leaf drop and reduced yield. Now number 4 is late blight, and this causes water-soaked lesions which turn black, and they kind of have a fuzzy white mold in humid weather, and it is really bad on tomatoes and potatoes. Next is damping off. This often happens with your seedlings. They can start to rot at the soil line and collapse over on one side. If you've ever started seedlings, this is very common, and it affects nearly all vegetables at the germination stage. Now the next is septoria leaf spot. This is small circular spots with gray centers on tomato leaves, and is often confused with early blight, but it's less aggressive. Now fusarium wilt is our next one. It has yellowing and wilting of your lower leaves, and is often on one side of the plant. One side of the plant is often affected. It's common in tomatoes, peppers, and beans. Now you have to forgive me because I'm terrible at pronouncing certain words, but this next one is verticillium wilt, and it's similar to fusarium wilt, but it's less heat dependent, and it's really bad on tomatoes, eggplants, and potatoes. The next one is anthracnose. It is sunken dark lesions on fruit, especially tomatoes and cucumbers, and it also affects the stems and the leaf. The next one is gray mold or botrist. I can't even pronounce that, but it's botrist. And it's gray fuzzy mold, and often you'll find this on damaged or dying plant parts. Common in strawberries, lettuce, and beans. Now the next is white mold. It's a cottony white growth on stems or pods, and it's often near the soil line, and it affects beans, lettuce, and carrots. The next are different types of rust. It's kind of an orangey yellow, kind of a dark orange color, and it can be also a brown color, and it has kind of small pustules on the leaves, and is found commonly in beans, garlic, onions, and corn. The next is black spot. You'll see small circular black or dark brown spots on leaves and stems, and is commonly on leafy greens like kale and collards. The next is called smut, and it's a black powdery spore masses, and is found commonly on corn ears and the tassels around them, and it causes gall formation. The next is scab. It's rough, corky spots on potato tubers, and it's less common if you have well-drained and acidic soils. Now the next is called white rust, and it is white pustules on the underside of leaves, and it targets things like turnips and mustard greens. The next is just common leaf spot, and it's purple to black spots with light centers on the leaves. It's found commonly on beets, carrots, and Swiss chard. The next is black rot. It's a V-shaped yellow lesions on the leaf's edge, and it can infect through water splashes. So a lot of times if the water's splashing from the soil back onto the vegetable, that's where it can originate from. Now we have alternaria leaf spot, and it's brown spots with concentric rings, and it often affects carrots and cucurbits, which is the common cucumber. Next is pink rot, and it rots potato tubers from within, causing pink discoloration, and it thrives in overly wet soil. Now the last one of our 20 is southern blight. It causes rapid wilt at the stem base, and a small mustard colored disease there or rust, and is common in hot, humid areas, which my area is very common in the summer months. So guys, when it comes to growing vegetables, it's just one of those things that you're going to have this problem in your vegetable garden. These things are most common from overwatering or extreme humidity. That can really cause these things to just multiply super quick. So if you have any questions about this video or any previous video I've done, please leave a comment or a question after you become a public subscriber, because I always filter my comments and questions by public subscribers so I can get to those first. I have so many of those coming in every day. I would spend 2 to 3 hours a day trying to answer all the questions. So guys, I really appreciate you watching, and I hope you'll try this mixture if you're growing a vegetable garden, or if you have a lot of ornamentals in your other types of gardens. This will help as well. Have a great day.